why would people want to go on a coaching trip abroad? That was the question. Not why would they want to go on a coaching trip with me, but why would they do it far away from their hometown in a different city, maybe even different state, depending on where you live, different country, and spend a lot of money on a coaching trip. I mean, just the journey by itself is, of course, something that will cost money. And I said, well, there are some very good reasons for it. But starting with this one, when you are away from your normal environment, that's when things get a chance to change. So let me repeat that again. It's when you are away from the things you normally do that you have a chance to change things. Of course, you can change things when you are at home. But it's when you don't have to deal with the normal day-to-day activities, the normal obligations, the normal routine, that you actually can open your mind for different things. So yes, of course, a different city, a different country, really. But what if is to a country which is really nice? And what I am thinking about is going to Chicago. Well, I'm not just thinking about it, that's what I'm going to do. And actually, I was there for a month last year in September together with Jo. Jo's in the background today. But I can tell you that she absolutely liked it. And if she doesn't, she's going to leave a comment straight away. So I'll be told, I didn't agree with you, but I'm pretty sure she did. So when people are away from their environment, well, let's start with this thing first. Of course, you need to have a reason to be coached. There's something you want to change. You want it to change in the near future. And often people want to go with someone, not just to see the location, which, by the way, is awesome because Chicago is an awesome city, but it's also because they feel uncomfortable going there on their own. Well, there are advantages of going with me. I mean, there are 2 airports we can make happen that someone is being picked up. That's the cool thing about a small coaching group. But it's also an amazing city with amazing architecture. There's so much that you can experience there. And yes, Jo says it was amazing. It was the best experience ever. And that's what I mean. It's a city where there's so much to do. And just look at this, the scenes where people have recorded series and still are recording movies. But like I said, at Chicago PD, ER, there are so many movies which actually have been filmed over there, but still also ongoing series. The whole One Chicago, what shall we call it? The One Chicago realm, as in it's the umbrella for Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med. And yes, like I said, for years, they also recorded ER over there. And how about Backdraft? Was also recorded in Chicago. And make no mistake, Backdraft 2 wasn't recorded in Chicago. They just used some footage of Chicago. So, question is, yeah, that's nice, but you want people from Chicago, right? No, I don't want people from Chicago. I want people who come from wherever they want to be. Like I said, of course, people from Chicago going to Chicago, if they want to, maybe there are things they haven't seen. There will be activities they've never done. That's for certain, because when we talk about coaching, we are also talking about assignments. But the big difference here is that we don't want them to go back home afterwards. I'll honestly say I have had training in the same city as where I live, which felt at some on some level, it was kind of nice. It was kind of comfortable. You know, if it was a little bit late, who cares? I'm in my own city. You know, I have the freedom to go eat and sleep wherever I want. But that's also exactly the one thing you don't want, because when you want to sleep wherever you want, what if you were to go home? What if you were to go see your kids? What if you get contacted by someone from your work? And that's the one thing that you don't want. Of course, emergencies, well, then you need to be able to contact people wherever you are and wherever they are, and whether it's work or personal matters, emergencies are emergencies. But again, let's go back to the whole idea behind coaching. Coaching is about change. Staying in the same environment, that's not going to help when it comes to change. If you want change, then you want a different outcome, you want different results, then don't do the same thing. Step out of that situation. So that's the basis of it all. Of course, you also want to be with like-minded people. So when you go on a coaching trip, especially with me, then you will know that it's going to be about speaking up and speaking out, sharing your story, and being able to speak up, as in share your voice. So sharing your story, it's not about that you are going to tell your soap story to whoever wants to hear it. This is about the message you want to get across. And if you, for some reason, feel that you are not being heard, people are taking you for granted, people do not take you seriously, they always tell you it's you, you might be inclined to use some substances or cut yourself or whatever it is to not feel the pain. You might want to consider coming over, because it's the fact that we don't want to express what's going on inside of us, whether it's because of fear or because people don't believe us, that's actually going to hurt us more. So because we are hurt, we don't dare to express ourselves. And because we do not express ourselves, we're likely to be hurt more, because people don't know what's going on inside of us. And of course, there's this thing called communication. We are not taught about communication at school. So a lot of people think that if they say something a certain way, then of course people will understand. I was talking about Joe, and it's kind of funny because we talk a lot over the phone, and she is British English, as she is from the UK. I'm of course Dutch. I got taught British at school, but we are exposed to the US English. So watching television, music we hear, and there are things like expressions which are very different. So I might say things and she is like, and I might hear things from her and I'm like, because I have no clue what she's talking about. And because I speak English quite easily, it's very easy for her to forget that it's not my first language. It's not my native language. So I do not know all the words. So things which are quite common for her might not be that common for me. And vice versa, of course, which has to do with the difference between, for instance, US English and British English. And one would say English is English. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Apart from that, it's just one example of one expecting the other to understand what is being said. I'm sorry, I have to laugh because he says it's quite funny sometimes. And that's so true. It is really funny. We can have a good laugh about it. So, yeah, absolutely true. But we also know, we've been hanging out for 4 weeks in last September last year. And there were moments that probably she would want to bite my head off. Well, then she needs to have, okay, never mind. I want to say you need a big mouth in order to bite someone's head off, but you get what I want to say. Yeah, she's laughing in the background. I can see it. So this is kind of funny. But still, there were moments that I was like, but we've talked about it, really? And there were moments that like she was like, but how could you? How can you even consider this? Because there are different values, there are different circumstances. And unfortunately, this time around, because I'm pretty sure that we are going together again, she is going to be sort of in similar circumstances as I am. So for those who know, I do not walk very well. That's why you see my pinup with a crutch over there. So when I went there, I didn't use crutches because I hadn't used crutches for a while back then. But I did take my knee braces with me. But this time I will be probably taking both my knee braces and my crutches with me to the US. And Jo is going to do so too, because she has similar problems. Well, actually, it's the opposite. Well, that's what I mean when it comes to words and communication. Both of us have problems with our knees, specifically with our ligaments, but mine is on the front and hers are on the back of the knee. So there's a difference. So you could say it's all knee problems, but the result, partially it's the same, as in the both of us are walking with crutches, but the outcome, what needs to be done when it comes for instance, exercises and all that stuff and certain braces, that's going to be different. She says so many words are the same, but with a different meaning. Yeah, well, that's absolutely true. When we were there, a lot of times, and we've spoken about that quite a lot lately, there were a lot of things that she couldn't understand, because I am quite easy when it comes to speaking up and asking for questions. So when I need to go on a bus, and I don't like going on buses, let me be clear about that, because when they pull up all of a sudden, it hurts my back, and it might cause problems with my knees or other joints. So I need to be very careful. But when I go on whichever form of public transportation and it's crowded, I will ask people to stand up. And that's something that was like a little bit, okay. Same with food. I've got tons of allergies. And if I don't speak up about it, then I run the risk of people having to call 911. Well, the question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to call 911? Or are we going to discuss what I can and cannot eat? Well, those answers are very easily given once you just explain it as in black and white. And as a result, because I have to do it when it comes to getting support, whether it's for food or for walking or whatever it is, I also tend to ask things more easily, which are a little bit closer to the heart. I remember that we went to where Chicago PD was being filmed, and I saw Brian Lucci over there, and I was like, oh, we need to talk to him. And she was like, no, you're not going to do it. And well, I ended up doing it. And that was actually the best thing I ever did. And we had so much fun. And we have a nickname now. We are called the Meerkats. So Jo says, I stand back while you talk. Yeah, that's very true. I'm not sure if it's because she's shy. I would say it has to do with embarrassment, more likely. So, and her response is, I can't help it. I've got no confidence. Well, she's got more confidence than she thinks. And that's the thing. It's when something is new, people are often uncomfortable. But when they already know certain people or they know certain circumstances, things might change. But you need to take them by the hand the first time around. And of course, when people see people do certain things, then there is a bit of change too. So I know I serve as a role model for other people too. I've heard it from my clients. They basically think, what would Lexi do? And so they get a different posture, they get a different attitude, which is of course a little weird for the person across, but it does help. And yeah, it's hard to approach people. That's what Joe says. And that's of course true for a lot of people. Now here's the thing, there are a lot of people out there who might be really comfortable when it comes to talking to clients, for instance. They know what they're talking about, they know their job. So reeling them in and for projects or whatever it is, long-term contracts, that's easy for them. But then when we talk about their employers, their employees. So when they're the employer and it's about their employees, that's a whole different ball game. So then it's like, okay, how am I going to behave? Am I going to behave boss-like? You have to do it, period. The question is that going to work? And I can tell you, it's not going to work. Maybe you can demand like you have to start at 8 and you leave at 5 and you have like a 30 minutes break all over the entire day. But still, who is going to enforce it? And what are you going to say when they don't do it? But this is not about whether or not people start at the right time and leave at the right time. This is about what are they willing to do for the company? How are they going to help grow the company? How are they going to be the calling card for the company, your company, if you are the employer? And that's, I often hear, but they don't get it. And I say, well, have you tried talking to them? Well, I tell them you need to do this, that, and the other. Uh-huh. And how does that work out? It doesn't work out. And then we get back to the whole thing of communicating. And what we need to figure out is how much do people actually say? Now, when you go on a coaching trip, there are other people, so you can role play. Even more so, what I believe is it's about one step at a time. So when it feels unsafe to do so at your company, for instance, whether you are the employer or you're an employee, it might feel a little bit safer when it comes to doing grocery shopping, for instance, or talking to a bus driver or whoever, whatever stranger it is. And that's what I mean. I easily approach people, and it's really weird for people to see. Joe can probably tell you that she's been multiple times like, what are you doing? Why are you going there? Why are you going to ask this? And I do believe that the why, and even the why might be debatable. But let's say that the why is clear, that people know why I'm asking it. And then even so, what is the norm? What are people used to? And getting back to that why, even why, that's why I said there's a big difference between last year and this year. Last year, I was the one who was walking with a lot of pain. And this year, unfortunately, she has some similar experiences. And with that comes a different understanding. So she now knows why I need to sit down regularly and why I cannot stand for a long time in line. And that's why I usually approach people who work at certain places in a certain role and ask them if they can do something for me. And I've, of course, also have learned in the last decade, it's almost a decade, 9 years now, not counting the time before it that I already was experiencing problems with my joints. But 9 years since I got to, I couldn't stand on 2 feet anymore. So there are people you want to look for, people who might know certain things. And sometimes it's like, why would someone be able to do so? I don't know. But if you don't ask, we have a no, and we can only get a yes. Call it opportunistic, but it's also experience. And if people are going on a trip with me, they actually get to see it firsthand, how I act, what I do. Hang on for 1 sec. I'm sorry that I'm a little distracted. Camera is a little distracted too. Yeah. But I've learned that if person 1 doesn't respond, that maybe person two will respond. And if person 2 will not respond, then maybe person number 3 will respond. So it's also about not giving up straight away. And by seeing me do it, and by being challenged, I won't say forced, but being challenged to do it yourself, things will change. Now, another reason why would I take people on a trip away from where they are living and working? Well, because I want you to remember your dreams. I want you to remember what you once said that you would want to do or were going to do. But also, new environment means you have to adapt, and what's going to be different. So it gives you so many opportunities to actually learn and apply new stuff. More importantly, one of the things I really love to do is when I listen to people, I also do that on coaching calls, is I hear what's being said or I hear what's not being said. And truth be told, sometimes I talk a little bit too much, and because I'm so eager to give back what I'm hearing. And yeah, that's really a no-go when it comes to coaching. As coach, I'm supposed to be listening all the time. And then when in the silence, when someone is not saying anything anymore, because in silence usually the other one is going to speak. Yeah. So when I sit across someone, when we are in the same space, yeah, exactly. I'm being called a chatterbox. That's because there's so much going on in my mind. So I want to give back a lot of things, and I sometimes have a habit, not sometimes, I often have a habit of forgetting the things that I want to say. So I really need to write them down in order to remember them. That's, of course, the perk of doing online coaching, because then you can write things down. But getting back, when people say things or not say things, I hear that, I notice that, and I want them to write it down, and I probably will have written down so myself. So when they continue on, I will interrupt them and say, hang on, go back. And I want them to be aware of what it is that they just said or didn't say, or the way they said it. And it could vary from things like, it must be me, it's always me. Well, the moment that I hear people say it must be me, it's always me, I will go against you. I won't I won't wait. It's the first thing I'll do. Because a lot of people, when they have dealt with mental abuse, and there's way more mental abuse than we know of, or maybe some sort of physical abuse as well, then we tend to think, I need to change. And especially, it must be me. Well, I'm here to tell you, it's not you. Of course, we're to argue, there's always on two sides something that can change. But there are a lot of people who actually can tell when someone is vulnerable And when someone is vulnerable, they take advantage of it, and they can get in this position that all of a sudden, from very kind, they can be very dominant, and they basically tell you what to do. And yes, mental abuse is worse than physical abuse, but they do go hand in hand. So you can bet them when people are abusing you physically, they will also do it mentally, and they usually do it by keeping you away from the people who are close to you. So when that happens, when people say like, yeah, but your ex or your kids or your parents, then you already know what's going on. Okay, getting back, I didn't want to be that. I don't want to say dramatic, because unfortunately, these are day-to-day things that actually happen in life, and not just one person, but a lot of people. And yeah, that's it. Experienced it for years, unfortunately. I'm not talking about me, although I've had my fair share, but not of domestic abuse. Getting back to dreams and what people say, I document those little things, because those little things often help people get back to who they want to be and who they can be. And it's saying those little things more often to yourself, like, hey, I am good enough. I can do this. See, I am worth it, which tells you are telling yourself a different story when you do so. There's a difference between I can do it, it must be me, versus, hey, hang on, I am worth it and I can do it and I am going to do it. But sometimes you need a little nudge in your back, and sometimes you need actually like a foot in your back, which I'm not going to do literally. Let me say that straight away. But you understand what I mean. Sometimes just saying one thing one time is not enough. Sometimes, especially when you're talking about being abused for years, it needs to be repeated over and over and over again. Because if you've heard it like 1,000 or 10,000 times, do you really think that if I say something to you one time that it's going to stick? Well, maybe it's going to stick, but if you're going to apply it, I doubt it. And that's the whole thing. That's what we need to consider. And by being away from your normal environment, first of all, if there are people in that environment you would maybe be guilty of causing some sort of abuse, you are away from them and you get a chance to actually recognize it and already become a little bit stronger and more certain of yourself. But also, you get to express yourself and explain yourself, because people react differently than the people you normally surround yourself with. And of course, there are the activities. And that's why I'm very happy that Joe's here. So, Joe is afraid of heights. And one of the things that we did was we went up, if I say it correct, in the Willis Tower, the Sears Tower. So that was the one that was originally the highest one, the one with the open cubicle when you're on the top. So the elevator, first of all, goes really quickly up till, I don't know, the 100th floor or something. And but then you get to see this magnificent view of Chicago. And she was like, but I'm not going to step in that glass box, glass floors, glass windows, glass ceiling, glass everything. And what I know is that people literally need support. So what I did is I reached out, not my hand, I reached out my arm, as if it is like a staircase and you're holding yourself to the railing. And that helped. So when she held my hand like it was a railing, she dared to step in, and we have some very, very, very cool pictures because of it. And that was, you could tell when you look at our faces from that picture that it literally did something with the two of us. It was a very special moment because it was very intense because of the fear. And for me, being able to actually help her out and overcome that fear at that moment, that was amazing. So here's the thing with fear. You can overcome it once, especially when someone is there. And then the question is, but what if you're going to do it again? Would you be able to do it on your own? Or would you be like, yeah, that was nice, but then you were there? So we often want a little support, and it's also about repetition. So here's the thing. I know what it's like to be scared of things. I've been brought up in a family where on one hand, my dad was the do-it-all and big guy, 6'6". So, he wasn't scared of anything, which of course also was the result with how he was brought up and the time that he was brought up. So he was 17 when his father died in 1941. Yes, during World War II. He was the oldest one, so he had to take care of the family. So then you get my idea. He was responsible, big guy. So he took the responsibility. And later, he was himself and people could bully him all they wanted. Of course, it had its effect on him. I'm not going to say that he didn't feel it. He did. And I still know he does. But he didn't show it, He was a strong guy and he was an icon in the neighborhood. Then you had my mom, also an icon in the neighborhood because she was tiny. And she had the black hair with a bun on the back of her head. So it was a nicer one than this one, actually. She was really good at it. Colorful clothes. She came from Indonesia, Dutch Indonesia. So she experienced World War II as well. She was a lot younger than my father was. And she got warned nonstop, don't go outside because the Japanese people might kill you, might torture you, might take you to camp, whatever it is. And one of the people close to her actually was imprisoned and had to go to camp. And a lot of people who are still alive, but now there are not that many people alive who have experienced it. They are quiet. They're really quiet. So my mom was the opposite of my dad, and she was trained to be afraid. And basically that's what we are talking about all this time. It's like, how do you communicate? How do you express yourself? And do you dare to express yourself? And how do you do it? And then again, we get back to the whole repetition. So it's important that you do certain things many times. So one of the things I sometimes have to force myself to do is when it comes to driving abroad. I know I can drive abroad, but things are a little different. And I feel way more certain when people are sitting next to me. And you can tell when I'm not familiar with what people are going to do and what I can expect. And that can make me slightly nervous. That doesn't mean that I don't do it. Same with driving in the dark. I don't see that much. I don't have good night vision, not at all. Like most people. And I see people who start to drive in the middle of the road at a speed which is very slow. Or you can say, no, I'm going to do it. But if I'm going to drive, I'm not going to do it in the middle of the road. I'm going to do it where it's supposed to be done. And in the Netherlands, that's on the right side of the road. But do I give in to driving slower or don't I give in to driving slower? Well, if I tend to really give in to driving slower, then where's the end? So normally I don't. But, I've developed little tricks which makes it a little bit easier. So I know what it's like to experience like fear, like, oh my God, can I do this? I know what it's like. And just recently, I also experienced that feeling of wanting to throw up. Fortunately, I also realized that it had been years that I actually experienced it. And the reason I felt so was because it was related to something which meant huge. It was very big. It was immense. And since it had taken me years to go through the process before I started the process, and then it took me over half a year before it actually got done. So for those who don't know, I am not originally born Lexi, but that's me now. So nice to meet you. But the result was that now it's officially there on the documents. It you are not allowed to just change your first name, at least not here in the Netherlands. So you have to have very good reason. And yes, unfortunately, it's related to traumatic events. And that's all I want to say about it for now. But when I felt like that, I had to reel myself back in because I was driving at that moment and I had to tell myself, slow it down. Well, there's this song, Slow It Down. And it kept repeating in my head. Of course, it had a very different meaning, but the effect helped. It helped me slow down. But I had to repeat it over and over and over again. And then we get back to the repetition and to routine. So because I knew what was going on, I didn't feel like it was safe. Well, no, because it was not that it wasn't safe. The way I wasn't driving didn't feel safe for me, but it was because I was nervous about everything. I was like, oh my God, it's finally done. I can get the papers. I can apply for the right documents. But I also noticed that in that day and the days after, I actually reacted very differently emotionally. So, with every passing day, I understand that there have been a lot of things that have built up to finally becoming Lexi. And of course, you know me as Lady Lexi out there, but I'm not allowed to use the brand name. So I was like, okay, if I have to make a choice, then it won't be Lady Lexi. It will just be Lexi. But yes, you all know me out there as Lady Lexi, and there are some reasons for that as well. Getting back to the whole trip, one thing I said was I listen to what you say and I write down those little things. And that's it. You want to get back to your dreams. You want to get back to future possibilities. It's about believing in yourself. It's about creating courage. It's about acting on that courage and creating confidence. And like I said, if you've repeated thousands, maybe millions of times, I cannot do this, and I cannot believe that this is true. And if other people have constantly told you that you're not good enough, or they didn't listen to you, then you won't be able to change it straight away. But if we document it and we write it down and you look at it like every day, then there is going to be a change. There's no doubt going to be change. So documenting it with pictures, and whether it's with videos or with audio, that does wonders. And when I told you about that picture from Joe and me, when we were high up in that glass box, that's one of those moments, that's one of those pictures that basically tells it all. That's why you could also see the emotion in both our faces. But it has been documented. I said, we need to take a picture of this moment. And lots of people forget it, but that's what's so important, that those moments that count, that's what you need to be captured. So when I left City Hall, I actually documented a video, and it's out there on the net. Just check out Lady Lexi Speaks Up. And Joe says, it's amazing you have the name you wanted. I'm really happy for you. And, the name actually hasn't been given to me. Well, a variation of the name I started using, that was a nickname, but English speaking people couldn't say it. And so the official version became Lexi. And when I saw it on the subtitles, the end titles of a video, and it said Lady Lexi spelled the way it is right now, it made totally sense. And I don't know, I think I was proud of it. I am. Let's keep it that way. And so those are the three main reasons why you want to go on a coaching trip. So you won't be exposed to the day-to-day things, so you're actually open to change. Your mind is open to change. People won't be able to say, yeah, do normal, then you're doing crazy enough. But they also can't reel you back in, which dominant people like to do. And there are also a lot less distractions, so that's very important. You want to be with like-minded people, and you also want to do certain things, take certain actions, be challenged. For Joe, that was going to the Sears Tower. Well, I can tell you there were a lot more challenges for Joe because we were so different. And where I would walk outside, sometimes 10, 11, maybe 12 o'clock, she was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Are you coming back safely? She would be nervous, and I would come back to the hotel room and I was like, what's going on? you know? And then she had heard all these sounds, and she was really worried. And it was so amazing to see that change during the time that we spent those weeks together. Well, actually a month. And last but not least, the whole documenting of those things. And yes, she eventually walked on her own. And that was so cool. But the whole writing down, the whole recording, the whole looking back on what it is that you've done and have experienced, that is so immensely important. So that basically comes down to that when I do a trip, I want to do a 3-day trip. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Usually for people it's a little easier when it's sort of over the weekend. So or the end of the weekend, and then Sunday you have some time for yourself and to relax a little bit. And then you can start again fresh on Monday, or you say, I'll take another week off and I'll do my own stuff. But doing it nonstop makes such a big difference. Being in a different frame of mind makes such a difference. And that's what we want. And like I said, when it's documented, that makes all the difference. So my preference is to have people around me, same hotel. So we start at the same place. Of course, people need to have time to themselves. But yes, of course, eating together, going places together. And there's so many nice places to go to in Chicago. I can tell you, I mean, there's the Riverwalk, which is famous for a lot of people. Attached to that is a big fairground, if I say it correctly, where you have the Ferris wheel, the big wheel, where you can go and have an overview of everything. But there are also lots of other different buildings. Of course, we need to go and take the L train. Yes, that's called Navy Pier. L train is iconic, and there are a lot of places which are iconic. So I will take people to different places, and it's best to do it together. So I do want people to do their own thing. But for certain, I want people to be able to also do stuff together, because it's when you do it together the change actually happens. And that's what we want. We want people to be to feel safe to do certain things. And we want them to do them repeatedly. We want to speak about it. What have you experienced? What did it do to you? And that's intense. And that's why I normally say, after those 3 days, don't go back straight away, but take your time, have some time to yourself, and make lots of notes, write it down, but also record it. Nowadays, we have video. We have a phone with a video camera on it. So let's use it. So if any of this sounds like, oh, that's interesting, you know what? I would like to be part of it. As it looks like it's going to be in September, probably in the second week of September. I'll let you know the dates, but please reach out to me. You can go either to my Instagram page, Lady Lex Speaks Up, leave a comment. You can go to YouTube, leave a comment. I would say go to the Instagram page, but if you don't, ladylexi.com/blog. There will probably be blog/Chicago. You can always go there. I'm going to make sure that there's going to be a blog post really soon. So that way you can reach out to me. But like I said, you can, if you've seen this, that means that you either saw it on Facebook, where you can leave comments, or you've seen it on YouTube live, and that means that you can leave a comment too. So if you really want to go with me, then just let me know, and I'll make sure that you get the right information. Of course, before we do, you first get a free coaching call, because we have to discuss what your expectations are and what I can help you with. I mean, if that doesn't work, then of course I can tell you, please come. But no, let's see if there is this match and we can work with one another, because that's of course very important. I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste your money. So, but if you are excited, then you know what to do. So you want to hit me up. There are a number of videos of Joe and me when we were in Chicago last year. They can be found on not on Facebook. Well, maybe even on Facebook, but also on Instagram. Lady Lexi Speaks Up. And I can tell you, we had a lot of fun out there. We've seen it all and talked to so many people. I've seen things that really surprised me. But the one thing I really love about Chicago, besides that they record those amazing series over there, are the Chicagoans. It's true. Yeah. And she says it right now. These are really friendly people. And you can have people from all walks of life just walking next to one another. I mean, I thought that my dad and my mom were the total opposite, but over there it's the norm. And when it comes to authenticity, people are authentic over there. They are. I mean, you can see guys with dreadlocks and beautiful nails, and you can see other guys with Gucci bags and dogs in their handbag. You can see it all. They don't. I know there's talk about that people are judged based on the way they look, but from what I've seen is that whatever your skin color is, it doesn't really matter. And personally, I believe it's more the attitude that people have and that the way they behave that people react to than it is to the skin color. I come from a mixed background, so I just still don't see how it works. People are people, and it's all based on upbringing and surroundings, how they react and what they do. But everybody is everyone deserves a chance. And I have to say that sometimes it's the people who have experienced the most who are actually the kindest out there. And seeing those people you know, we've talked to so many people. We would be in a music store and we would have a conversation. It didn't matter where we were. We would have conversations with amazing people. And that's what I mean. It's a great city. And like Jo says, the buildings are amazing. The boat rides at night are stunning. And that's so true. So that's why Navy Pier is absolutely on the list. There's so much more that can be done over there. We've been there for 4 weeks and we have only seen, well, not a few things, but only so little. There's way more to explore. And that's why I like staying in a city for longer than just a few days. Anyway, again, if you are the one who says, yeah, I feel like that would be something for me. I've got certain dreams. I do not know how to speak up and speak out, or maybe I do in certain areas, but not in other ones. And there is the anxiety and the insecurity. And not everybody will experience anxiety, but they will experience insecurity. But when you know that you are the one who every now and then want to find that off switch in your mind, then you know what I'm talking about. So let's try and change that so you have perspective again. So you dare to go do whatever it is you want to do and let Chicago be the start of that. So again, you know where to find me and I'll talk to you soon. And if Chicago is one step too far, then remember there's always group coaching. Okay, that's it for now.